Welcome to a new episode of the Guru Perspective. I'm your host, Hugh Lee himself, the Guru. And I would like to talk about the crazy weekend that we had recently with the college sports. And I want to get into some of the NFL too, as well. And of course, at the end of the show, I will be breaking down the teams I feel like are going to win for this week. And I'm going to give my college and my NFL predictions as well. I want to start off by talking about what happened recently in the college world of football. Wasn't too bad. There's a few upsets here and there, some really close contested games. Some games I think teams dropped the ball and should have lost, but still, it just makes college world of football and sports that much more entertaining. I want to kick off and talk about the Friday, football game that we had, and that's the Clemson versus number 20 Louisville. Now, I believe I picked Louisville in this game, and it didn't materialize that way. Cade Kublik didn't really do as good as I thought he'd do, too. Cade Klubnik basically had 187 yards, 22 of 34 passing. But then when you look on the other end, Miller Moss basically had 212 yards, 19 of 27. But who really took the game by storm was the run game. Adam Randall had 105 yards on 15 carries and two touchdowns. And then you had Keyshawn Brown from Louisville, who had 135 yards on 15 carries. Really good, pound for pound game. It went down to just straight good defense, ground and pound game, just, what a regular average football head likes. That final score was 20-19, and I was a tad bit upset because I definitely felt like Louisville could have won that game. They missed a crucial kick, and I believe when it was time about to expire in the game, and that cost them that victory. But I just didn't feel like they had, a strong kicking game. In college now, you see guys making, from beyond 45 yards. Hell, some even close to kicking 60 yarders in college right now. And so the kicking game got much stronger, and definitely not as bad as it was for maybe 5 years ago when you wasn't really guaranteed to make it past 35, like the chip shot. These guys are professionals and they play really well now when it comes to the kicking game. And in this instance, I just felt like they didn't do their job with Louisville. And number 20, Louisville was upset by, Dabo Sweeney and the Clemson team, the Clemson Tigers 2019. Moving on, I want to talk about Michigan and Northwestern. That was a little too close for comfort for me. I feel like this was more like a growing pain game for Bryce Underwood. He had 280 yards, 21 of 32 passing, and two interceptions in this game. Jordan Marshall was the man of the hour in this game. You lose Justice Haynes, and you still got a hell of a running back in that backfield with Jordan Marshall with 19 carries, 142 yards, and he had two scores as well. On the other side, Preston Stone had 184 yards with Northwestern, 13 of 27. And their run game, Caleb Kamalafe, basically had 12 carries, 31 yards, and a score. And of course, our receiving game, Andrew Marsh looked really good 12 receptions, 189 yards. And for the Northwestern team, Hunter Welching had 81 yards on four receptions. So it was just basically a pretty close competitive game. The crazy thing was it looked like Northwestern was about to win this game. We got the ball back, drove down the field, and then in the shutout seconds, it was like maybe 6 seconds, maybe less. And time expired on the field goal. So that was actually a pretty exciting game. You got to throw the records out the window when you're playing in competition. And that was Big Ten rival. And we was going to a road game in Northwestern. So, they were going to be rowdying up for the occasion, especially when this could be their bowl game right now, or basically their championship game. Because, yeah, 9 times out of 10, they possibly might make it to a bowl game. But this is their championship game right now because they know that's the farthest they're going to get. They're 5-5 right now, so sky's still the limit for that team. But that final score was 24-22. Go Blue. I want to get into the South Carolina Texas A&M game because I was a little disappointed in this game. I thought the Texas A&M would blow this team out, and I believe that they had like a point spread, like a 10.5, maybe even more against South Carolina. South Carolina basically had looked at it like, listen, this is an SEC game. This is competition. This is our bowl game. They look like they're definitely not going into any type of bowl games right now or any championship games at 3-7. But I like to give credit where credit is due, and I want to see more of this kid, Lenore Sellers. You know, he played really good football. 246 yards, 15 of 30, two touchdowns, and he had a pick on the day. But the wide receiver as well, Nick Harper, looked pretty good. Three receptions, a touchdown, and 102 yards in the game. But I got to give credit where credit is due with Marcel Reed. This kid had 439 yards, 22 of 39, three touchdowns. He had two picks on the day, but at the same time, those picks were basically in the first half. And they just went crazy in the second half because they were fighting for their lives and playoffs and their championship hopes. And then you have KC Conception, wide receiver, seven receptions, 158 yards. So they really looked sharp in that second half. It was definitely a tale of two tapes because at the beginning, it was basically 30-3 at the half. Then they scored 21 points in the third quarter and 7 points at the fourth quarter that made this a very close, too close for a comfort game that I'm surprised South Carolina let slip out of their hands because they had this game. That final score was 31-30. I want to get right into it too. Number 11, Oklahoma versus number 4, Alabama. I feel like John Mateer with the rushing touchdown, that was the only thing that he really did. Besides Ty Simpson throwing that pick six on the day, this was relatively a close game. He had Ty Simpson 326 yards, 28 of 42, a touchdown, and he had that pick I was telling you about. But Daniel Hill basically had 15 carries, 60 yards, and two scores that kept Alabama in the game. And Josh Cuevas, he had six receptions for 80 yards and a score. At the end of the day, I feel like you got to give credit where credit is due, and I'm going to give utmost respect for number 11 Oklahoma's defense. They made the plays when they needed to, and they kept Alabama from getting in the field goal range to closing this game out. The two sacks at the end was very costly for Alabama. I can't even really say Caleb DeBoer didn't do a good job or anything because he's just started, and two games lost on this season is not really bad. They still got a chance. If I'm not mistaken, I've seen what was going on in the rankings right now. And if I'm not mistaken, Alabama is ranked number 10 right now. So by them still being ranked, they still have a shot. I believe if they can go to the championship game and win, they'll definitely be in. But that final score was 23-21. Like I said, give credit to Oklahoma for playing a good game and definitely a good road game in a hostile environment in Tuscaloosa. I want to get into the number 21 Iowa versus number 17 USC game as well. That game was going to be close for me, and I thought that that was going to be a good battle. I believe that I picked Iowa in an upset. It didn't go down that way, but still, it was a hell of a good game. It was a good contest, and I definitely enjoyed everything about it. Good Big Ten football. I was a little surprised too because I thought Mark Gronkowski would have played a little better. He had 132 yards, 12 of 19, a touchdown, and a pick. And Jade Maeva had 254 yards, 23 of 32, and he had a score too as well. It was a really good contest, but the one guy I looked out for was Makai Lemon. He had 10 receptions, 153 yards, and a touchdown. He really looked sharp in his game. I'm not sure if he's a sophomore. No, I'm not sure if he's a junior or a senior, but if he's a senior, he's definitely going to be one of the guys to look out for in the 2026 NFL draft. That final score went down to the end, 26-21, and I give credit to UFC. They're 8-2. They're ranked number 17. It's a few scenarios that they can possibly still make the playoffs as well. So yeah, I'm gonna keep my eye on that team in USC. Number 24, South Florida Navy. This was an upset game because what I've seen in this game was you had number 24. I don't know if they took Navy lightly. You know, those are like the armed forces and different teams that we have that they play hard, man. They're hard nosed, gritty teams. From Army, Navy, Air Force, you name it. We got some gritty teams that plays for, America. They serve us and they play football. So I like to give a shout out to them and what they do for our country. We appreciate that. I have to give credit where credit is due, and I give credit to this kid from South Florida. Even in a losing effort, Byron Brown had 327 yards, 23 of 32, two touchdowns. He had a pick on the day, but check this out. Byron Brown also had 17 carries for 136 yards and two scores. So he was pretty much most of their offense. And Jeremiah Koger had 9 receptions, 112 yards, and he had a score as well on the day. Blake Horvath had 147 yards, 8 of 15, and a touchdown. And then you had Alex Texa, 12 carries, 126 yards, and a score. Like I said, this is a gritty, really good, hard nosed team in Navy. They ended up pulling it out at the end in a very good, close, contested game. That final score was Navy 41. They're 8-2 on the year. And USF, South Florida, is 7-3. I want to talk about this game, another upset. Cincinnati usually been letting me down, and I'm not surprised that this happened again. They ended up playing Arizona. The kid from Arizona is actually really good when, in crucial moments. Noah Fafita. I mean, he's hit and miss, but when he's good and he hit it out the park. 294 yards, 23 of 31, and he had a touchdown on the day. And Kendrick Briscano, 13 carries, 94 yards, and he had a score as well. Brendan Sorsby, he had an average day, 154 yards, 15 to 28, a touchdown, but those two picks were very costly. Wide receiver Tyree Walker had 119 yards. Correction, running back Tyree Walker had 12 carries, 119 yards. And that final score was Arizona pulling off the upset, but is it really an upset? They're 7-3 and they've been playing really good so far. That's been a team that's under the radar. 30-24. I want to give an honorable mention too, because I felt like in this situation, Georgia Tech possibly could have and they should have lost to Boston College. Like I say, the team and the records don't show. Boston College is 1-10 on the season. May not tell you that. They're 1-10 on the season, and they took on a 9-1 Georgia Tech. But when it's definitely competition, especially in your division, and it's a rivalry game, you got to throw everything out the window on this one. Even though they didn't pull this game off, they were very close. Dylan Lonergan had 362 yards, 26 40, and two pass touchdowns. I do like Georgia Tech's, quarterback and Haynes King. He had 371 yards, 26 to 34, and a touchdown. The run game was the best thing that went on in this game. Need I say more? Malachi Housley, 107 yards, 15 carries, two touchdowns. And Turbo Richards, yes, he definitely suit this name. 141 yards, 11 carries, and two scores. Very good, run game. And the pass game was actually not that bad neither. Malik Rutherford had 121 yards, 5 receptions, and a score. And Reed Harris had 5 receptions, 142 yards, and he also seen the end zone. That final score was 36-34, and it was a little too close for comfort. Very good college competition. I was very happy to see that. I want to move into the NFL right now, and I want to talk about that. I want to get into the first game, that Thursday night game. I feel like right now, when you look and you see Justin Fields, I don't think that he played well. But in this game, at the beginning of the game, he did good for the pass and the ground game. He kind of mixed it up. You didn't know what he was going to do, and that helped them. But did it help him enough? No, I don't think so. And this is the reason why I think Tyrod Taylor's going to take over this up and coming week in week 12. Not giving or not being disrespectful, I'm still giving credit to Justin Fields in this game because he fought with everything he had. He had 116 yards, 15 of 26, and he had a touchdown. And then he had 11 carries for 67 yards, and he had to score as well. Drake May didn't have his like explosive games, but he had 281 yards, 25 to 34, and he had a touchdown. The guy who had the hat trick in this one, Travion Henderson. This kid basically had 19 carries, 62 yards, and two touchdowns, and he caught a receiving touchdown as well. So he had three touchdowns on the day. And that's what basically did it for the New England Patriots. I mean, right now they're one of the best teams in the ALC. They're 9-2, and the Jets are 2-8. I mean, that final score is 27-14. That's exactly what I expected. The game in Madrid wasn't so entertaining. I think I came in at the last minute when they went into overtime. The game ended up being tied 13-13, and they went to overtime. It seemed like nobody wanted to win this one. Marcus Mariota had 213 yards in the air, a touchdown and an interception, and Tua had 171 yards, 14 of 20. Devon Achane had 120 yards on 21 carries. And I think that that basically was really the offense. It wasn't really a lot going on, a lot of field goals in this game. And at the very end, when Marcus Mariota got picked, Miami took full advantage of the actual field. And once they got that field advantage, they had enough room to actually pass the ball and to be able to kick the field goal. And that determined the game. That final score was 16-13. And that definitely wasn't a really good game, by the way. I just wanted to get that out the way. Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Cincinnati Bengals. This was a pretty determined contest early. Joe Flacco had 199 yards, 23 or 40, a touchdown and a pick. Mason Rudolph had 127 yards and he had a touchdown. Yes, Aaron Rodgers got injured in the game, and that's why he didn't finish the game. And Kenneth Gainwell had 7 receptions and he had 2 touchdowns in the game. Chase Brown had 18 carries and 99 yards, and T. Higgins had 3 receptions, 63 yards, and a score. I really wanted to talk about this game because that final score was 34-12, but that's not what I wanted to talk about. I feel like there's no place in the sport right now, Jamar Chase, for you to spit on a player. Then he lied and said in the media that he didn't even do anything or even talk to the guy. It's too many cameras, and with HD, and how clear and crisp everything is, and the technology, they were going to know if you did what you did or not. And they found out he spit on him. They're suspending him a game, maybe 2 games. And when this happened, he's going to have to relinquish some of his pay too as well. So that's no place in the game. If you guys are losing, lose with dignity. You don't have to spit on a player, because Jalen Ramsey's not the type of person. He might talk junk and get a little rowdy at times, but he's not going to try to continue to fight you or do any type of bodily harm to you when it's a game. So I knew something was wrong. I said, usually that's not how Jalen Ramsey act and how he carry himself. Something happened, and it had to be addressed. And obviously that's what happened. And I mean, when this happened, he handled it anyway anybody else would handle it. You don't spit on somebody. That's disgusting. And I feel like Jamar Chase is one of my favorite wide receivers in the game, but that suspension, it was definitely worth it. Then you had the 635 debacle game. This was a redeemed game for the Los Angeles Chargers after being, beat real bad in the playoffs. And I'm not even saying they got blew out, because they were blowing out Jacksonville. And Jacksonville made a miraculous comeback. So I thought that they'll still have that on their mind and mark this on their calendar. Obviously, they didn't. Trevor Lawrence had 153 yards through the air, a touchdown and an interception. Justin Hubbard, yes, very pedestrian. 81 yards, 10 of 18, and an interception as well. This game was really determined by defense. I feel like Jacksonville did a really good job on defense and just handling the momentum of the game. You never know which game you're going to get out of Justin Hubbard. One time he could be like one of the best players in the league, and we all speak on that as him being a qualified MVP candidate. Then he can stink up the place. And he had a lot more stink games than he did great. And that final score of 35-6 just speak volumes because sometimes you never know what team's going to show up in the NFL every Sunday on any given Sunday. That being said, I want to move on and I want to talk about a really good game, Buccaneers and Bills game. I believe this was one of the games in the early window. Baker Mayfield didn't have a Baker Mayfield day. He had 173 yards, a touchdown, and a pick on the day. And hell, I can't even say Josh Allen even really had a Josh Allen game. But the difference is Josh Allen adapted to the game while I think the defense really saved him in this one. He had 317 yards, three touchdowns, and he had two picks in the game that actually helped with, the Buccaneers getting in this contest. And Sean Tucker, on the ground, he had 19 carries, 106 yards, and two scores. Very good outing from him. I mean, they basically have one of the best next man up mentalities in sports today, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but it still wasn't enough to be able to shake off the Buffalo Bills, especially at home. That final score was 44-32. The Chicago Bears versus the Minnesota Vikings. I didn't really think it was a good contest. It was good defensively, but Caleb Williams had 193 yards, 16 to 32. JJ McCarthy had one of them pedestrian games, because you never know if he's going to show up. And for the most part, he hasn't. 150 yards, 16 to 32, a touchdown, and he had two picks on the day. Crazy part about it is still, regardless to the fact that he still gave them a chance to try to win this game, he wheeled his team down and they got a touchdown late and they took the lead. It was a good game, and the funny thing was, it was a good kickoff return from Duvernay to set up the Chicago Bears in good position. And Cairo Santos was able to drill the 48-yard field goal at the end of the game to close out the game. Very good, ending, but it was just really one of those games that you really didn't want to see on Sunday. But still got to give credit where credit is due. Chicago Bears lost a few early, and they've been running the table. And your record as good as you say you are. And they're 7-3 right now, and they're on top of the division. I want to get into another game. Want to briefly talk about this. That final score was 16-13. Wasn't really a lot of offense in this one, but I do give credit where credit is due. And Davis Mills stepped in for CJ Stroud and looked pretty sharp. 274 yards, 26 to 41, and a touchdown. Wow. Cam Ward on the other end for the Titans had 194 yards, 24 of 37, and he had the touchdown as well. Nico Collins is Nico Collins. He had 9 receptions. He had 92 yards in the score. And that was the difference in this game. That final score was 16-13, very pedestrian game. But at the same time, like I said, give credit to the Houston Texans. They won 2 games, and they won with Davis Mills, and that got them back at 500 right now. So they're still fighting for a playoff spot in hopes that they can get into the playoffs. But hell, being on 5-5 and at 500 right now, I don't know when CJ Stroud will be coming back. He held it down for the team and to still give them an opportunity to play. What I think is really starting to shine for the Houston Texans is that defense. Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. has really been stepping their game up. They already have Derek Stingley and some really good defensive pieces. They're starting to really show who they are and what they're all about. And that's what I believe saved this game. Really good contest for when you like defense, and especially just for a backup quarterback or trying to make a living in Davis Mills. I have to give him credit for that, even though this game wasn't that good. But then I want to talk about the Carolina Panthers. You never know what team they're going to be every week. Hell, I could say that about my Detroit Lions. They're very Jekyll and Hyde. This week was one of the better outings after I just dogged out Bryce Young and left him for dead last week. This is what he do this week. His best NFL performance by far. This man had 448 yards, 31 to 45, and three touchdowns. And Tatiera McMillan had eight receptions, 130 yards, and two scores. On the other end, Michael Penix seemed like he was out because he got injured. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he might be out for the season. He had 175 yards, 13 of 16 passing. But John Robertson held it down on the ground for them, too. 23 carries, 104 yards, and two touchdowns. And Drake London had seven receptions for 119 yards. Very good game to the very end. They went into overtime. They let the Carolina Panthers catch up, get into overtime, and kick a field goal and walk off this game. They're 6-5, a game over 500. So you're good as your record. Nobody expect Carolina Panthers to be playing as good and at this level. But then you got to think about too. They play San Francisco, coming up. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the Monday night game. So let's see what they do there before I start crowning Bryce Young right now. The Packers and Giants game was actually a little bit more entertaining than what I thought. They were going blow for blow, and it looked like Jamison Winston was going to go down and win this game and close out this game for the New York Giants, but that didn't materialize. Jameis Winston had 201 yards, 19 of 29, and an interception. Jordan Love had 174 yards, 13 of 24, and two scores. And then Emmanuel Wilson had 11 carries for a touchdown and 40 yards. Tyrone Tracy Jr. had 19 carries and 88 yards as well. This was a really good defensive minded game. I was surprised that the Giants stepped up like this, but then, you guys got, a lot of good guys over there. You got a Dual Carter, you got Dexter Lawrence, and, you have Brian Burns. You got a lot of good defensive pieces over there. And they had to respect that because they definitely stifled when they needed to. And Jordan Love was definitely in trouble in this game. But at the end of the day, like I said, you are what your records say you are. And they're 6-3-1, and they pulled off the game 27-20 to avoid an upset with Micah Parsons stopping and closing out the game at the end. Then you had this gem. You had Seattle Seahawks versus the Los Angeles Rams. The crazy part about this is the quarterbacks didn't really do much. They wasn't really affecting the game as much. Stafford did because he threw two touchdowns and he was clean on the day. He had 130 yards, 15 of 28, and two scores. On the other end, Sam Darnold had 279 yards, 29 of 44, and four picks. Yes, you hear me correctly. That man had four picks on the day. He saw them ghosts that he saw in New England, or whenever you see a good pass rush give him fits. Kenneth Walker III had 16 carries, 67 yards, and a touchdown. And Kyron Williams had 12 carries, 91 yards, and a score. The defenses were very stout, and they were as advertised in this game. I wanted to see blow for blow who had the best team. And at the same time, with those four interceptions, they still had a chance to try to close it out at the end. It was just the 61-yard field goal was a little too much for the Seahawks to overcome after those four picks. And the final result was you have an 8-2, one of the best teams I've seen in football right now. Los Angeles Rams versus a Seahawks team, and that final score was 21-19. I believe they'll see each other again. I want to know. I believe they have another game in store. So I definitely want to see that. You guys, I apologize. I was a little too excited. I didn't even put it up on teleprompter who was going on playing and what was going on. Yes, this is NFL Week 12. Week 11. My apology. I want to get into the 49ers game because this was a weird contest right here. Brock Purdy was back, so Purdy came back, and I guess that gave them a little spark that they needed, even though Mac Jones been playing lights out. Give him credit where credit is due. He was 19 of 26, 200 yards, and three touchdowns of the day. Jacoby Brissett had a hell of a game, too. But I think a lot of this was garbage time because they were getting beat so bad and they were behind, so he had no choice but to throw the ball. 452 yards, 47 of 57, two touchdowns, and two picks on the day. Yes, he has the record right now in completions with 47. And you had Christian McCaffrey, who stepped up as well. 13 carries, 81 yards, two scores. And George Kittle had six receptions, 67 yards, and two touchdowns. And that final score, like I said, wasn't even close, 41-22. Cleveland Browns versus the Baltimore Ravens. And you can never say never with the Cleveland Browns, regardless of how pedestrian things are and how much of a circuit it is over there in Cleveland. They gave them good competition. This was a too close for comfort contest. Baltimore pulled it off 23-16, but I still don't feel like Lamar Jackson was comfortable in this game. 14 of 25, 193 yards, and two picks on the day. Dylan Gabriel had 68 yards, 7 of 10. Yes, because he got hurt in this contest. They put Sador in the game, and Sador basically gave him a little life until he didn't. He got sacked a lot. He threw interceptions, and basically it was just too overwhelming for him to play against the Baltimore Ravens defense, who's been clicking on all cylinders. Derrick Henry had 18 carries, 103 yards, and the score. And that final score was 23-16. Like I said, Cleveland played a little better than what I gave them credit for. And then you had the Chiefs versus the Denver Broncos. This was a really defensive minded contest. There wasn't a lot going on in this one. The only score was Patrick Mahomes giving a touchdown pass to Travis Kelce, who broke the all time record in Kansas City. Congratulations for that. He had 9 receptions, 91 yards, and a score. Patrick Mahomes had 276 yards, 29 to 45, a touchdown and an interception on the day. And Kareem Hunt had 59 yards, and he seen pay dirt as well. That final score at the end, the Denver Broncos pulled it off, and they're 22-19 with the final score. 9-2 Denver Broncos, who definitely looking like they're going to win this division this year. I want to get off into the Sunday night football game, and I want to be honest, it was very pedestrian for me on both sides. But the Eagles' defense was just a lot better than our offense, because we didn't really have a lot going on offense. There, Jared Goff looked confused at times. And you could tell that he starts seeing ghosts and he hesitates when he's getting pressure up the middle and pressure in general. He's not a good scrambling quarterback who can execute on the run. And they basically exposed that. We have a banged up O line. Don't want to make that an excuse because even when the O line has been somewhat healthy, you never know what Detroit Lion team you're going to get. It's like they don't play the competition. They'll beat up on teams that they need to beat up on. But like I said, when they beat the Washington Commanders, I said that was the banged up team. Let's see what they do against the Philadelphia Eagles. The funny thing is you can't blame the defense on this one. Kelvin Shepard did his job, and the defense played relatively well in this game because Jalen Hurts didn't do a lot himself. He had 135 yards, 14 of 28. Jahmyr Gibbs didn't do that well in the run game, 12 carries, 39 yards, but then in the passing game, 5 receptions and 107 yards. My biggest problem, too, is I know Dan Campbell is one of those gung ho coaches when it comes to being a hard nosed quarterback or just a player in general. I just don't feel like we executed a good game plan. Him as the coach should know better that if you could get points, take them points. You played in a league before, and yes, you can go for it on fourth down. We know that's his game. That's his MO. That's what he do. Well, you had a quarterback who couldn't get a good rhythm in this game because of that pass rush. That's what I meant to say. And by you not being able to get a good rhythm with golf, and you had the one good score with Jamison Williams. But I still feel like when you have fourth down, if it's 4th and 2, 4th and 1, yes, maybe. But when you have all those fourth downs, man, you're going to have to start looking at it and saying, we need to get points, man. We don't need to convert on this one. Get the points while we can. That was an issue that we had before in the past. But then I still say, too, I'm not blaming him on that. Yes, I do blame him, but I'm not saying for him to have that, that gambling mentality sometimes, that Russian roulette mentality hurts us. If he would have kicked and made the points or took the points out of this one, it probably could have been a different contest. You can't go for the gusto all the time, man. As a coach, I just want him to make that decision. But like I said, we praise him when he make it, and when they don't make it, everybody look at him like he's just coming to earth, or our playmaking is terrible, or our play calls. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, when the points are there, I think he should take them. Rather than feel like he want more than that and get greedy. Because I believe they said in history we're the only team who went for it 5 times, 2 years in a different span, and went 0 for 5 and 0 for 6. That's Dan Campbell record. He was 0 for 5 that game in 2025. And then in 2023, he went 0 for 6 as well on fourth down, the games that we've lost. So I just feel like we definitely need to take the points when they're there. Yes, people didn't like what happened with Jared Goff and was saying he needed to be benched after that poor performance. But then you can't just blame him. I blame the offense in general. They wasn't clicking. The O-line's not looking good. Yeah, we have some banged up players. And I felt like we should have went after some people, personnel, when it came to the deadline. But still, if we had like some protection on the offensive line and got a pass rusher or whatever we were looking for, the weapons we feel like we necessarily need to win now, would we go to a Super Bowl? My guess is I don't believe so right now. I still believe that we still need to, as an organization, and Brad Holmes, think about at some point we need to gamble and we need to make more ballsy moves than just sitting and just being too patient. He's being a little too patient. And at one point, unfortunately, that's why I believe the Los Angeles Rams separated from, Brad Holmes, the patience that he had. As soon as they got rid of Brad Holmes, that's when they just went and swung for the fences and ended up winning the Super Bowl. I definitely hope that don't happen here, because he's a hell of a, GM, and I want what's best for this organization. But I just think that at some point we need to focus on being aggressive when we need to. But at this point, was it really necessary to even try to be aggressive? Because I still don't feel like we have a Super Bowl caliber team right now. And that's just me being realistic, and I'm hoping my viewers listening and they're not pissed off at me and feel like, Hugh, man, we don't want to listen to your show no more because you talking horse pucky. But I'm just being honest. I still feel like wasn't a bad measuring stick game. They both played pedestrian, but that final score was 16-9, and I feel like we could have did better or should have done better. I want to see a healthy Detroit Lions team go to the playoffs and see what they can do, because I can't predict and who's going or say who's going to be the Super Bowl champion. But our road is not looking too good right now, because we still got to play the Rams. We got to play the Vikings in Minnesota, which I think to be a better game than what I think. But then, we got to play the Bears. The Bears are not too happy the way we treated them, too. And that's the last game of the season, too. We got to play Green Bay after we play the New York Giants. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot of stuff that still goes on. It's still a long season, but I'm interested in how they're going to play down the road. And I just don't want that Jekyll and Hyde mentality, man. I want us to fix some of these problems and be a little bit more consistent, because it's like win, lose, win, lose, win, lose. We haven't had too many wins in a row after we had broke off the 4 games before we initially lost. So I want to see a little bit more consistency in our organization. I'm not giving up on the Lions, and I still love my team. I remember when we were the same old Lions. At least we are in playoff. We're in playoff contention, and we're competing every year. So I just want us to get over that hump and finally get us a Super Bowl here some year. I don't know when, but sooner will be better than later. Like I said, I'm not going to bash my team, but I just feel like they just ran into a buzzsaw who had a really good defense. They had a good interior when it comes to their offensive line, and they have a good defensive line. I just feel like they're everything what we're trying to be. And Howie Roseman make those decisions and he take those risks. But at the same time, you still got to credit the one thing that people are not looking at. He built it from the ground up. He started from getting his guys. And that's what Brad Holmes trying to do. So we're starting to get a little impatient, yeah, because we was in a conference championship game not so long ago. But I definitely hope that they can start taking risks in our organization. That being said, I want to move on, and I want to say I don't really want to talk about the Monday Night Football game. It was a disaster. And this was the first time I just looked on my phone and didn't really watch too much of that game. Dak Prescott had 268 yards, 4 touchdowns. Geno Smith, on the other hand, had 238 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. And he was their run game, 14 yards on 4 carries. Javonte Williams had 93 yards on 22 carries. George Pickens had 9 receptions, 144 yards, and a touchdown. So he looked sharp in that game. But that final score was 33-16, and I can please move on from that game. That was my review for the NFL, and I'm about to give my prediction from both the NCAA football and the NFL right now. I want to start off, and I want to get into some NCAA action. Okay. Week 13, number 18, Michigan versus Maryland. I'm going to go with Michigan, and I'm going to take the 13 and a half points. Rutgers, Ohio State, and I don't even care what the spread is because they're going to win that game. Sanford versus Texas A&M, they got to do better with the SEC, man, as far as when it comes to competition, man, because they play a lot of powder puff teams, and I'm starting to get sick of it. But I'm going to go with number 3, Texas A&M. Missouri versus 11, Oklahoma. I'll go with Oklahoma, but I'm going to go under the 7.5. Number 15, Miami and Virginia Tech. I'm going to go under the 16 and a half, and I'm going to go with Miami. Number 20, Louisville versus SMU. This is where I got the upset. I'm going to go with SMU, and I'm going to take them with the 3.5 points on this one because I don't trust Louisville after the last game I saw them play. Charlotte and Georgia, like I said, come on, guys. Y'all got to do better than that. I'm going to go with Georgia. East Illinois and Alabama. Hell, Alabama, I don't know what to say about y'all right now. I'm not saying y'all a bad team, but if y'all could have closed out the Oklahoma game, we wouldn't even really be talking about this right now. But yeah, like I said, you guys must do better. Alabama, I'll take them in this one, of course. I mean, who the heck is Eastern Illinois? No disrespect. Number 24, South Florida and UAB. That's not a good one either. I'll go with South Florida. Number 17, USC, and number 8, Oregon. There we go. I'm going to go with Oregon, and I'll go under the 10 and a half. Syracuse, Notre Dame. I'll take 35 and a half too. Arkansas and Texas, I'm going to go under 8.5, and I'm going to go Texas. Kentucky, Vanderbilt. I'm going to go Vanderbilt at home, and I'll take the 9.5. Michigan State, Iowa. I'll take Iowa at home in the 16 and a half. Kansas State, Utah in the 17 and a half. Number 22, Pitt, Georgia. I'll take Georgia Tech at home, and I'll take the 2.5. That's going to be too close for comfort. Number 23, Tennessee versus Florida. I'm going to go with Tennessee, and I'm going to go under the 4.5. Number 12, BYU and Cincy. I'm going to go with BYU, and I'm going to go over the 2.5 they're giving BYU. Okay. Now, let's get into the NFL. Bills and Texans. This is going to be a really good game, but I'm going to take Buffalo on the road with the 5.5. Patriots and the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to take the Patriots, and I'm going to take the 8 points. New York Giants and Lions. I'm going to take Lions with the bounce back and the 10.5 at home. The Colts versus Kansas City. I'm going to take the Colts, and I'm going to give them the 3.5 that they were going to give Kansas City. Pittsburgh Steelers and Chicago Bears. I'm going to take the Bears at home in 2.5. New York Jets and Ravens. I'll take the Ravens at home in 13.5. Seattle Seahawks and Titans. I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks in over the 13.5. Vikings and Packers. I'm going to go with the Packers, and I'm going to go under the 6.5. Jaguars and Cardinals. I'm going to go with the Jags, and I'll take the 2.5 point favor on the road. Cleveland Browns and the Raiders. Who cares? Keep it moving. The Falcons and the Saints. I'm going to take the Saints at home with the 1.5. Eagles and the Cowboys. I'm going to go with the Eagles and the 3.5 on the road. Buccaneers and Rams. I'll take the Rams at home with 7. And this is the game I was talking about, you guys. Carolina Panthers on the road against San Francisco. I'm going to go with San Francisco, but under 7 points on this one. And I would like to say thank you all for chiming in and listening to the show. I will be doing a show on Tuesday. It's going to be a brief show. And then I just want you guys to enjoy your holiday as well. Have a blessed, safe, and happy holiday. And of course, I want to basically give you guys a way that you can catch up with me. I'm Hoovy on Instagram, WHOOVI. You can catch me there. I usually put up my promos and, let you guys know what I've been working on with my AI creations. I'm Sports Guru to you on Facebook, and what I do there is give you the late breaking news and the scores to all the games. And I used to give highlights, but I know they don't too much care for that, so I just put the scores and late breaking news. And Hugh.Lee 6, I put up a lot of my promos. I put up the professional NFL, NBA, NCAA, whatever you want to call it. I put up those reels there, and I put up a lot of promos. And I like to give shouts out to all my social media, and I appreciate you guys showing love and, just, giving a brother a chance to put some of the best work and the promos and the things that I like to do and talk about sports out there for you guys to check out. And I would like to say, like I said, once again, have a blessed, happy, and safe holiday. I want to give a shout out to the Nighthawk Network and everybody who's under the Nighthawk Network. You all know who you are. I want to say peace, and I'll see you next week. And until then.